So yes, Mr. JB, you spend, let's say, until now a very big chunk of your, life dedicating to the, the research, the discovery, or maybe rediscovery of the elements, archaeological elements on Mount Kulen, sir. And maybe you also wish to be here longer. So my initial question is that when did you first hear about Kulen Mountain, sir? Is it on the TV or newspaper when you were young?
No, it was when I first arrived in '99 as an archaeologist in Angkor. At that time, in France, you had to do the military service, serving your country, but you could do it in a civil way, so either in a company or either in an institution from the government. And I had the chance to get a position at the French School of Eastern Studies, École Française d'Extrême-Orient, EFIO. So that's how I first came in Cambodia in '99 for a 16 months job, working mostly in Angkor Thom actually. And I quickly heard and saw Kulen and came here, attracted by the difference. Basically, Angkor is obviously amazing sites, but I wanted to go a bit further, a bit more far, and I was attracted a bit like a magnet to this place. I cannot really explain you why.
So your first time in Kulen was in 1999, sir?
It was actually in Khmer New Year 2000. I arrived in Cambodia in '99, in late '99, but by the time I came here, it was April 2000. I spent a couple of nights in this village. It was extremely remote, extremely poor. I came here to see the temples because I was aware of the previous map.
So as a tourist or as a researcher?
As a curious, as an archaeologist working in Angkor, but as a curious person who wanted to know about what was here as well. I quickly saw not only the potential of archaeological research, which was left before the war, but also I met and the villagers here in these villages, and I felt that it was a place where I could do some, not only personal research, but we could also do some help. Give some help to these very poor and isolated villages. This took a few years because I kept working in Angkor. After my first mission, I managed to come back either for Apsara Authority, either for EFEO. And then in 2007-8, I managed to set up this charity, this NGO, which is a British charity called Archaeology and Development Foundation, ADF. We signed an MOU with the Apsara Authority and later on with the Ministry of Environment. And later on to the with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as an international NGO in Cambodia. And within this NGO, we were able to do all these excavations and research and mapping in Kulen, but also a lot of activity related to the local development, to bring alternative livelihood to the population. And also a lot of activity related to the environmental protection of the Plom Kulen, because the forest is threatened by the activities of the villagers or by newcomers or illegal activities. So we wanted to propose alternatives, but also to implement measures to protect the remaining part of the forest. And then also activities in school to have a better access for the children to education and health. So all this project was thought during the first decades, or let's say 8 years, from 2000 to 2008. And from 2008 until now, we are able to implement a lot of activities, not only for the archaeological research and conservation of the sites, but for the benefit of both the population and the environmental context of the natural park of Plom Kulen National Park.
Yes, but you didn't expect to be here this
long?
No,
for sure. I first came in Cambodia for a 16 months mission, and I never imagined I would spend my life here. It's been half of it now, and I would never thought I would stay, but I got caught by the charm, I would say, by the kindness of the Khmer people. Also very touched by the difficulties that these people were living in 25 years ago. There was extreme poverty, there was malnutrition, and they were extremely generous people despite these difficulties. So it was very touching to be received and welcomed here so well, despite very hard conditions for these people. So things have changed now. Families have a better life. It's not the case for every of them, but the idea was, slowly growing in my mind that we should do some archaeological research, because this is my background and my passion. But I could not only come here and do research and leave and study the data and do nothing for these people who were partially temporarily employed just for excavation. The idea was to do a long-term project focusing on activities that could change a little bit the dynamic, where deforestation was going up and poverty was still very present. So the idea was provide alternative livelihood and stop if possible deforestation.
Yes, sir. But you mentioned that in the 2000, this place was not developed. It was a very far place from SIEM REAP. Even though Banti Srai Temple, my parents used to say also, it took them like almost a day just to get there.
Yeah.
And it's not easy, basically. So during that time, so when you do the research, when you research, you take a lot of, mental energy, you take a lot of physical energy, a lot of recording, and also you need technical equipment which require, let's say electricity or connection.
Yeah.
So how did you do that, sir, during that time? And even though for now, they're still demining some unmined.
So yes, it's true that the access at that time was nothing to compare to what it is now. You're right, the road to Bantesre was a very bad road, laterite road with big holes, and it was quickly repaired though in 2001, if I remember well, early 2001. And after, it was still a dirt road up to the bottom of the mountain. The tourist concession that is in charge of the access of Kulen fixed the road from the entrance of the park to Pleangtom. So it was a laterite road, and then after, nobody was going anywhere else. These villages were extremely isolated.
This community was connected by the main road?
It was connected by a trail.
A trail.
Which was barely accessible by car and only in dry season. So it was extremely hard road. Now it's a sealed cement road, but it took I don't know, maybe 30 minutes or 40 minutes to do those 8 kilometers. It was extremely. So basically, we didn't have car. We only use bikes or dirt bikes to come here. It was the easiest way to come to the village, and from the village to go to explore these archaeological sites with the help of the local villager. So this was the way we worked, and I worked first, and the way we worked within ADF after.
Yes, sir.
We obviously didn't have electricity before. There was no network coverage. There was no phone. So we had to do without,
so
human being
rudimentally, like recording and then save them offline and then
we
them
would
later,
exactly we would
like that.
We would take the points of the GPS and record the data by noting in our notebooks and stuff like that, and then type it back to the office. So this was another way to work, but we had to adapt according to the circumstances here. There was no electricity. We were living with candles in the local house and so on. So it was very different. I always felt that when I came back to SIEM REAP during the weekend, I was going back to Manhattan or something. It was such a big contrast Now these are, smooth. It's more like, of course, we are still in a traditional rural village, but road is good. We have electricity, we have water, we have internet, we have phone. So it brings, a lot of changes to not only to us, but for the daily life of everybody here. Having a better road is of course easier to go to the high school or to the secondary school. Is also very good for health. You can go very quickly to the health center and you can communicate better if you have phone and so on and so on. So it's a big progress. However, it's a big change from 25 years ago.
Yes, sir. But Angkor Archaeological Park is also a very big place, and there's still a lot more to do. But you don't choose Angkor, but you choose here, a very back then isolated place. Anything can be deadly, even though a small mosquito, let's say. So you still decided to come here.
I was younger. I was not. I like going out of the beaten track. I want to see what's behind and what you show me Angkor Wat. And yes, sure, but what's there? And I could see the range of Kulen in the distance, and I knew there was a capital because it has been recorded for decades within the archives. So okay, let's see what's there. And then despite the difficulties of coming here because of the road condition or the living condition, very basic in traditional remote village, it's not a problem for me. We had to be careful in terms of surveys. Yeah, you mentioned snakes and mosquitoes and stuff like that, sure, but that's part of Cambodian rural life, so since you know that, you adapt to that. But we had a specific element to take into consideration here. It's the mines and the unexploded ordnance that were left by the different parties during the war. Kulen was a stronghold, Khmer Rouge, from 71, I think, until 97. So there was a lot of fighting, especially in the 80s. We can still see the trenches somewhere in the villages. And there is still, up until today, discovery of mines of unexploded ordnance in the villages. So because of that, the surveys, of course, we couldn't go everywhere, but we had to be guided by. I had to be guided by local villagers,
knowledge,
who knew,
seniors, something like
who knew the safe place and the unsafe place. But to avoid any terrible event, we had systematic demining operations over each archaeological sites that we worked for excavation.
Yes, sir.
And also for additional archaeological sites that Apsara was also willing to maintain and guard. So in both cases for a safe access to public. So within this archaeological work, there's also a component which was quite important. It was to coordinate with the Apsara authority and the CIMAC team the area to be demined around or within an archaeological site, within a temple. Where do you stop the demining operation? So because the deminer are often the first one to clear the vegetation, because they need a good access to the ground to use their machine.
Yes.
They are the one cutting the small vegetation, and therefore you can see the topography, and you can see, for example, the surrounding wall of the temple more clearly because vegetation has been cut. So therefore you can tell them, okay, go to after the surrounding wall, and then that's it. So throughout these years, from 2008 to 2000, I think up until 2 years ago, we have been coordinating demining for every archaeological site we have been excavating or putting as a place for visitors and also for guarding for Apsara. So that represents 40 hectares of archaeological sites demined and and that we ensure the coordination.
Yes, sir. At the same time, sir, because Kulen is big, so how would you, let's say, come up with a certain topic for your research? Like, how do you know what to research, let's say?
Yeah, good question. First, you need to study what has been done before. So you have a background
base,
exactly
yeah.
of what is known and what is therefore less known or unknown. And then you select. First, the mapping is important. Okay, to know where things are. It gives you a picture. It doesn't mean at all that everything is built at the same time or used at the same time, but at least you know what is where. And from that work, you can determine some categories of sites. Some are temples, some are rock shelters, some are dikes, and then there was two special sites, the mountain temple and the royal palace. And
So that
therefore,
sits in a different category.
exactly, determine different categories and then select the most representative among each categories to be excavated. So that's what we did from 2008 to 13. We selected the most the most interesting, the one that we had documentation from previous research but not complete. The most, of course, we couldn't miss the excavation at the Royal Palace, or at least at that time we didn't know it was the Royal Palace, but we managed to determine that. We also couldn't miss to excavate the mountain temple. So these are sites that are, quite unique, and of course we focused on that. Same kind of approach for the rock shelters. And then again, after we had the LiDAR result, we had to switch from these categories of that we previously determined to another kind of sites, mounds, ponds, dikes.
Not clearly defined site.
Exactly.
Like that,
I mean, they are clearly defined, but they are hard to see without the LiDAR, and they're usually not built with bricks or stone. They are only raised sites with soil or dug as a pond, for example. So this was the strategy we had to switch from pre-LiDAR to post-LiDAR data. Now we have a global approach. We are still interested into the occupation of the sites, how the mountain was occupied during
populated over the centuries.
So from the capital and even before to the end of the Angkorian period, or even the beginning of the post-Angkorian period. So we are interested in all these sites with no with no further selection on one or the other. We are interested in all these sites. We actually don't really study the prehistorical site. There is a few of them
in Kulen Mountains.
There is a few of them. It's mostly rock painting, figurating human figure or geometrical figures, also into a rock shelter context. Sorry. So these sites are quite
diverse,
particular, older, and I don't want to excavate a period that I'm not familiar with. I think this should be dedicated to specialists of that period. So we basically focusing on the late pre-Angkorian period, Angkorian period, and early post-Angkorian period. So, but only in Kulen.
So many researchers, Cambodian or international researchers, are doing research here on Mount Kulen, or is it you and a few of your colleagues, like the entire mountain, of course?
We have been pretty much the only team working here. So personally within my master from the early 2000 to 2008, and then within the ADF project, we have been the only one. there's a few exceptions. The University of Singapore had implemented a couple of excavations.
But yours is a permanent one.
Yes, exactly. There's also a Japanese university, both excavating kilns, Angkorian kilns from the 10 and 11th century. But yeah, we are the only one permanently based here and excavating a large variety of sites.
But do you have any plan for other research on Kulen, sir? And
well, we haven't finished, and I know it's a never-ending story, but we haven't really. We have been excavating 22 sites, I think, over the last 16 years.
22 sites.
Yeah,
big and small. Yeah.
Yeah, big and small, a large trench or smaller trench. So we have a large amount of data that we still need to analyze and publish. Excavating is one thing, but if you don't share the result will disappear with you when you die. So it's really important to summarize the findings and to analyze and to summarize into a publication to make the science and the discussions with the colleagues progressing. Otherwise, you keep information and you are the only one to know what's underground and this specific site. So this is where we are now. We have a lot of data. And we need to go back to this data and publish as much as we can. However, since we also have a D in ADF, which is development, we have a lot of activity in terms of helping population or protecting the environment here, and this is taking a lot of my time. So we are modifying our. So you also
discover, preserve, and also develop. So there are many stages overlapping.
Exactly, because everything is interlinked. Yeah. As we mentioned before, the village is located within this capital. Yes, there is ancient mounds that were discovered by the LiDAR, thanks to the LiDAR, that are located in the village, that are threatened by the development of the villages, of the school, of the roads and so on. So we work closely with the local authority and APSA authority to protect those sites from destruction. We should also, I wish soon to develop some kind of awareness project so we can explain to the villager why this is important to protect your heritage. It's just a pile of soil. But there is 80 of them around the village and you need to protect them, even though we don't really know what they are. So this kind of approach is important because it's not only archaeological research, it's also archaeological research put into a context, which is our context now, today. What do we do with these sites and how do we protect them and how do we
get people to know them,
to know them, and to make them, to preserve them. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Just a small question about because in history of the Cambodian archaeological research, we have a lot of researchers from France, a lot of researchers from other countries, and also you mentioned that you came here since Kulen was inaccessible for many people, but you just don't come here only to see, but also to do a lot of in-depth research, and it is also known in history that many French people come here, when Angkor was very lesser known.
Yeah.
So is that something that the school inspired young people back then to go out, or is it just like work, or what is that spirit in?
Yes,
in
I think well, Cambodia in France for sure have a very special relation, as we were the country colonizing this country and this region. So Cambodia is not unknown for French people. It's something we always heard about.
In your school, in young ages.
Yes. Yeah, because at least my generation, we have learned that this region was colonized by the French power almost all throughout the 20th century. So this is the country that we know where to put on the map, at least, you know. And then there is also the context of the studies in France. If you have the chance to do university studies, then, and if you are interested into history or archaeology, and if you mixed this interest with the Southeast Asia knowledge, then you quickly come to Angkor and to the Khmer civilization. So we have Khmer artifact in France with a very large museum Guimet in Paris.
Or something like that.
Yes, with some of the items come from Kulen actually. So if you're a bit interested in this region, and if you're interested into history, then you quickly mix this interest, and this is what happened to me and my colleagues. You know, they who are, for some of them, also French, working for EFEO, and who have been specialized into either epigraphy, Khmer epigraphy, or Sanskrit epigraphy, or spatial archaeology, or stone restoration, or art history, or so there is a special link between the French researcher and the Angkor kingdom or the Khmer Empire. However, it's true that during all these decades of research, there was no Khmer scholar trained until the 60s, where the Royal University of Fine Arts opened the Faculty of Archaeology. Unfortunately, the war started,
yes, they
and
many
there was
of
very
actions.
few scholars that have been trained because of the war. So now we're trying to catch up with that. For example, with ADF, we have been, and we are not the only one. Most of the international team working in Angkor or in the sites around, such as Kulen, we always integrate Cambodian trainees to participate to our research, not only field research but also post-excavation research, so they can have a first-hand experience on how to excavate and what is the methodology. What do you do? Why do you open here and not here? And when do you open a trench? What are the steps, and how do you record the data, and so on and so on. And also, how do you manage a team of workers? What do you tell them, and how, and so on. And this is one step. And then after we have finished the excavation, what do you do with the data? How do you process them? How do you analyze them? So this is something we have been doing for since 2008. I think we had about 60 students from the Royal University of Fine Arts that went through our excavation project to benefit from that experience. And again, other projects in Angkor are obviously doing the same.
So it is a lengthy process to come up with the, like, let's say, the data, and also to process them.
Yes, the data you take from the field. It can be pictures, it can be drawing, it can be notes, it can be forms that you fill, it can be 3D model now, it can be drawing.
Sound maybe, so.
It could be videos, it could be, so all these data you need to, of course, artifacts. Yeah, we bring back to the office sherds of ceramics, samples of charcoal, samples of soils to be analyzed later on. And you need to make inventories of this, you need to digitalize all these drawings, you need to scan all this data, and so on. So this is the first work that we implement together with our students.
Yes, sir. So there are still more work to do.
There is still more for us as what we are concerned. For us, I mean, it's there's lots of work to be done. We have been working a lot in those sites. We could do more excavation. We could do, however, I try to balance between the willing. It's obviously very exciting to do more excavation in another in a place where nobody excavated. If we have the human and the financial resource, we usually do it, but it's not the case every year. So I'm also quite happy about that, because then I can myself and the team, we can go back to the data of the previous excavation and then
to look at it again.
Look at it again and write and publish, because again you need to share these results. Otherwise, it's like you don't excavate. You do half of the job, and it's better not to excavate.
It's unfinished.
Exactly.